Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Time Is Now podcast. My name is Jody Albert Moss, and my guest is Rowan Banks, Lyranwitch. She's very interesting. We've been friends for many years, and I'll turn it over to her to introduce herself. Rowan?
Hi, thanks for having me on, Jody. So my name is Rowan, and I started Lyranwitch in an effort to make a safe space for people to explore their spirituality, even if it differs from how the mainstream has kind of viewed that. I wanted people to never feel alone in how they experience the divine and how they connect to the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. So I got into this originally with the intention of just helping people in general, and it's kind of bloomed into its own thing over time. I work as an intuitive reader, and I help people connect with their animals and connect with their higher self. I also do some Reiki healing and like code healing as well.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Can you elaborate on how you came up with the name Lyranwitch? I don't know much about the Lyrans, but is it connected with the constellation?
Yes, so I actually it's funny because the name of the business was actually it was never going to be a business. This was just my username online for a long time. And it was because I had some contact experiences with beings who said they were from Lyra, which is a constellation. Um, and this constellation has been known throughout time to reflect the lyre, which is a musical instrument. And all of the beings that came to me resembled different animals. It was like they were part animal and kind of humanoid as well. And they first showed up in dreams, and I've also had experiences that you would say like a UFO experience. So originally, that's how that name came to be. And also, the witch part of it is because I connect with nature. And I always found that witches were very powerful people who were just aligned with nature energies. It's become sort of an inflammatory term in a way. And I think it's just because witches have always been on the fringe of how a patriarchal society views um, spirituality. So I like that it connects back to the divine feminine because that's what is on the rise right now. That's our receptive energy. So that's how I came up with the name. It's a combination of my own experiences and just energies that I align with that are very old.
Well, very interesting. I have similar connections myself that I'm exploring, and every day is a learning experience for me. You provide services. Can you talk a bit about the services you provide? I think you do paintings and all kinds of different things.
I do. So I would say my main thing that I do is I read energies. And that's what ties all of the different things I do together. So I do readings for people, which are like they can involve cards like tarot, but mostly I'm a channeler. So I channel in energies that are in people's auric fields. And I tell them, I usually am validating something they already know because everybody has access to their own energy. And it just gives them an idea of where their trajectory is going at that time. I also connect with the energies of animals in a similar way. So I do telepathic animal communication to help people connect with their pets and with the animal medicine that they carry from different lifetimes. In addition to that, I do some energy healing. So I help people release cords that have been bothering them that they're struggling to release. I do Reiki healing, which is a type of energy manipulation that helps to release stuck things in the aura. And in addition to that, yeah, I do paintings. So I will do channeled paintings to help with whatever intention that person asks me to. A lot of times it'll actually include an animal or plant that's working with that person's energy. So I've had people work with like coyote or fox, and I'll do a painting of that animal with some channeled sigils to help them that they can keep in their space. So that is what I do. And yeah, it's been a new experience every day. It's always changing based on what people want help with, essentially. And spirit will come in and give me inspiration to help with that.
You mentioned a word there, sigil. Can you talk a bit about that casually? Because that's been
Yeah,
forefront in my life lately.
yeah. Sigils are that's just one term. There's so many different words for this, but it's essentially a geometric pattern or an art form that holds energy. So you can kind of think of it as a package of energy that whenever somebody looks at it, it unwraps itself and it gifts the person a package of that energy. That's the easiest way I can think to say that. And some people call it light codes. Some people call it yantras. That's like the Hindu term for it. A yantra is like a sacred symbol that kind of unfolds into an energy. Sigil is just a more like European term for it. And I'm sure that you've connected a lot with that, Jody, because I've seen you channel light codes and post that on your social media as well. It's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, I got some interesting things coming to me. And as you're speaking, I need to ask. So you have somebody or something, could be energies in anywhere, and you have the intention to create this sigil or this little energy package. So you actually receive that from the energies and bring it down and manifest it in this reality. And then it becomes like a battery for whoever needs it.
Exactly. It's like an energy tool. So if somebody comes to me with the intention of connecting more deeply with their ancestors, with animal energies that they might have carried throughout different lifetimes in their own Akashic records, or even their star family, or it could be anything, whatever's in their energy at that time, and they tell me what their intention is, I will sit down and I'll either look at a picture of that person or just sit with their energy, and I'll see a picture of that sigil in my head, and then I can paint it, or sometimes I do digital art with that as well, and I'll put in some animations to make it move. And it's really interesting to hear how other people receive the energy, because I've had people let me know that they feel certain sensations in their body when they receive it, that they have relief from anxiety or different things whenever they receive that or put it in their home. So it's really interesting to see how it affects people, and it's definitely something that has changed the way I live my life too. It's really made me more intentional of what kind of images I take in the media and stuff like that. So it's been very cool.
Right. I'm going to stay on this topic for just a little while longer, because I'm getting information as I'm speaking to
Yeah.
you. Could we create these sigils, these little energy packages, before we even incarnate to this lifetime, and put them in our timeline or in our etheric energy bodies? Could we do that kind of work before we came here as like little treasures we find along our path?
Yes. I absolutely love that question, because I've never thought about it that way. But honestly, I feel like if somebody sat down with the intention of channeling all of their lifetimes of lessons and energetic gifts into a single image, they could choose to do that. I think that working with sigils or working with light codes or whatever you want to call it, sacred geometry has so much potential as a tool to access yourself. It's not that we ever like need to have an external version of that energy, but I think it's really helpful for us because we are in physical bodies. So it's really nice to have physical representations of those things to help us remember, essentially, because that's what we're doing whenever we're moving through our seasons of life and our spiritual journeys, is like we're remembering pieces of ourselves that we might have experienced from before. We're remembering who we wanted to be as kids, even like who did we want to grow up to be. So you might make a sigil to represent that and tune into that energy, so that it's like training wheels to hold that in yourself and be like, okay, yeah, I can still do this even though maybe some bad things happened to me in the past. It's all just kind of a tool to help you like remember that energy. But in regards to your question, I think that definitely is something that is more common than we think, is leaving ourselves these little tidbits or these little synchronistic tools or moments or geometric patterns. Even for some people, you're an artist, I feel like you have that artist spirit, so you might have really left yourself these artistic sigils or tidbits in your Akashic records or your soul memory, to be able to channel back into at certain milestones in your journey and be like, oh yeah, like I remember this, I'm ready to unlock this gift again, or I'm ready to unwrap this present I left myself again. And I think that those little moments are very exciting. And I think it, it helps to kind of bust through that pervasive disappointment that sometimes the media and just kind of this very downtrodden energy that society is pushing on a lot of people. I think that it kind of gets rid of that, and it helps us to remember to be in that childlike wonder about life again, which is really beautiful.
Yeah, I want to mention that while you were talking, several times there were orbs in front of you. So they'll show
Oh,
up.
really?
They'll show up on the recording. Maybe you didn't see them, but they'll be there.
Yeah, I can barely see my own screen. I'm looking at you, but
Yeah,
I'm actually at my reading desk right now, and that happens pretty frequently. Like all of my cards and tools, all of my tools are beside me, so I'm not surprised to hear that. I
right.
always ask the angels to show up before I start doing anything like this.
Well, there's some energies are definitely here for sure. And
Yeah.
one thing I've always respected about you, through your good times and through your rough times, you give it original. You give it the way you see it, and you don't polish. It's like, for me, you're real, and that's what I really appreciate. So I just wanted to put that out there. And
That means a lot to me.
the information you're sharing is really resonating with me, and it'll also resonate with our listeners. There's a lot of sensationalism about star people, all this ascension, all this
Yeah.
5D, 6D, all, there's, I refer to a lot of it as distraction. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Oh, I totally agree with that. And I think there's a lot of um I don't want to make this all about race, but I've seen a lot of things about white supremacy being kind of wrapped up in a pretty package as like the starseed experience. And it doesn't have to be that way. I think that you're absolutely right with the sensationalism and the shock factor. And there are a lot of people in the contactee, UFO, and cryptid communities that kind of want to glean off of real energy from people who are experiencers, and they either want to make it into something scary so that it sells, or they actually want to like leech energy from those of us who are having these experiences and kind of like take pieces of it and try to make it into something else. But I think that if you're coming into this, even just if you've never had any kind of experience and you just feel really interested or connected to the idea of star people, that idea has existed from the beginning of time. Like every ancient culture had some aspect of a galactic connection. Like humanity did, I think, come from somewhere else at some point. I think we did evolve, but I think that there's like a seed planted, and I think we've had visitations throughout time. Those are just my personal downloads about it. But I think that it's really important that if you get on this path, don't follow what a bunch of random people have written books about. Like, really tune into your own heart and make sure that you're acknowledging your own ancestral guidance too. Like, have 10 toes in this reality, because it can get really bizarre. And I think you can get very like sidetracked from what we're actually trying to lean towards, and that's having an open heart and compassion for people and leaning into unconditional love, whatever that is for you. To me, that's God, or like source energy, or sources, whatever. But I think people do get very distracted by the idea of, oh, there's intelligence somewhere else, so only focus on that. And it's like, they're just other people. Like, there's good and bad energies out there, just like there's good and bad humans. They're not gods. They're just, sometimes they can be advisors, but I don't think that they're deities. And for that reason, I think that that's where people get really confused about it or thrown off, because they don't want to look at their own ancestors and be like, yeah, I'm a human with a whole ancestry that maybe needs my attention and needs me to balance out ancestral karma, ancestral curses. Like, a lot of us incarnate into these family lines to break outdated or archaic thinking and bring love to maybe ancestors that have gotten stuck somewhere along the line that are like haunting the family line. That's super common, things like that.
Yeah, and our reality is positive, negative, male, female, whatever.
Yeah.
You can debate it all you want, but that is this reality. And I
Yeah.
was like, not against religion. I was born, baptized,
Right.
confirmed Anglican. So, I mean, the Trinity for me is the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit. It's the three energies.
Right.
But I just think a little differently. To me, I mean, the hierarchy. I would just had this conversation with some people. When we leave this reality, there is a hierarchy out there, and I
Yeah.
believe Jesus runs this universe, and there are starships. It's just we've been led to believe there's a different picture, a different story being told, right? But
Right.
speaking to what you said about all the ancestors and the thousands of years, this lifetime and what we're really comparing to is like a small piece of what the
Yeah.
big picture is. So don't get hung up on it. I want to ask you, how important is nature to assisting in ascension, to assisting
Yeah.
your spiritual path?
I'm glad you asked this. And I just want to mention I was actually it's interesting that you're Anglican because I was raised Catholic. And I think I've done a lot of healing since then because there were a lot of things I disagreed with about it. But the more I come into everything, I do come back to like how that's a part of not only my family line, but also like, Jesus is a part of Source and the Holy Spirit is a part of Source. And so are lots of other beings that I connect with. So I agree with you on that. Um, but as far as, speaking to your question about nature, I think it's radically important because just hopping back to the starseed idea for a moment, that's another piece that I think people get really wrapped up on is the escapism part of it, where it's like, I've met so many people who say this, and my guides have always told me, like, that means you're ungrounded. That means you're not connecting into the earth. You incarnated on earth to learn things and be a part of living in an animal body. We're animals just like every other neighbor that we have outside, right? And our pets and everything else. And I think people get so hung up on the idea of like beings that are like higher than us, meaning ETs, but we forget that there's so many animals that are on the same plane as us that we ignore. Like the sensationalism of connecting with an alien. How many times have you connected with a fish? They're just as different as, an alien might look, or, your dog. We live every day with some of these animals and people feel completely disconnected from them. So to me, and just from what my spirit guides have told me and my connection to God, the animals and plants are like our wisest teachers that are in physical bodies. To me, I see them as, spirit guides in a lot of ways because they choose to come here without an ego. I think that it's important as humans to like look at our ego and not try to kill it because that's a part of being human is having an ego, right? In balance, in moderation, like everything. But at the same time, like it's so amazing that we have all of these different animals and plants around us that have no ego. And if you tune into their energies, they're all telepathic. Whether or not you like pay attention to it is the other thing. You have to have a very quiet heart to be able to sense that. And people, what I really think I help people with and try to help people with is clearing enough space in your mental and in your heart space to be able to open up to those beings, to the animals and plants. And the stuff that gets stuck or like kind of stuck in your craw, I guess, whenever you go through life is like grief, not letting resentment go, wanting to escape. It can be lots of different things, trauma. That's the stuff I'm helping people or try to help people like release in energy terms with, okay, like I am a part of something bigger. I have enough space in my mind and heart now to kind of reach out into that bigger energy and feel like I'm a part of something again. Because I think as humans, we get really distracted by the idea of aloneness because a lot of us have imbalances of ego. This idea of like being very solipsistic in a place, in a universe that depends on an ecosystem that like depends on interconnectedness is what I mean to say. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. I tend to talk in a lot of different circles. I just go where spirit guides me with this stuff.
That's okay. That's how it works, right? It flows in, flows out. And Sometimes,
Yep.
I know personally I start to jabble, but you didn't. You were fine. Everything's great. But I want to mention, I buy books all the time. And I've got books here that I bought over 30 years ago and I've never read them, right? Well, I just
Yeah.
picked one up. I just picked one up recently because I've been attracted to herbs. And this book
Yeah.
says that we cannot evolve spiritually unless we connect with nature, because the plant kingdom, the trees, and all the energies that go with that affect change in our DNA. And we could only go to like 30% without nature. So if we don't connect somehow, we don't go the rest of the way. So, and again, it's not all about who's going to land here and rescue us, because my whole perception of that is different. I think we need to do what you said, silence ourselves and make the space to allow what's already around us to come in. And we have to realize that we're part of everything.
Yeah, it's important to heal and preserve this planet, right? I think people like forget that.
Yeah.
Because it's us, the little guy, which is very powerful, right? That need to like remember how to come together as a group and agree on something. I think we get so like distracted by the soapbox, especially that social media can offer us. It has lots of good things too. I like social media, but it can offer a soapbox to the point where I think people don't remember how to agree on things. And I think most people agree that Earth is beautiful and we want things to be preserved and not mowed over by giant corporations that are polluting and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It always bothered me all my life because I wanted to share with people and help them. And it got so frustrating when I first moved into this place. I went out in the trees behind here and sat there, and this may not get received well, but the voices that I follow told me I'm not here for people. Help people if they come, but I'm here for the planet. That's what I'm here for.
That's
So
what I was told. Yeah,
that helps me out a lot personally. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah. That's funny. You got the exact same message I did because, I part of me really enjoys helping people, but there's a part of me that burns out on it very quickly because there's so many predatory energies out there. And, I'm not going to harp on that. I think everybody understands how that works. But I was also told, like, one of the first dreams that kind of got me on track with this and made me realize, oh, I'm going to be doing this for a living at some point as this unfolds, was I had a dream that these three, I guess they were star beings. It was a dream space, and I was on a different planet. It was all purple. And there was this white lioness, one that looked like a mountain lion, I guess, and another like darker colored lioness. And one of the lionesses was like, you're here to help bridge the gap between animals and people. There's a bunch of you doing this, but this is what you're supposed to be doing. So you need to get it together in yourself so you can do this. Because at the time I was very deep in pity party for my life. And they were like, come on, we're pushing you, like, do it, you know? Um, and I think that was a big turning point for me because it helped me to understand, like, humans aren't the only beings that need help. So I agree with you on that. And I agree with you as well about the plants helping us. I think that the plants and fungi probably are the most ancient beings spiritually that we have on this planet. And I think we're really lucky to have them and don't really pay enough attention to it. But the trees especially have been like great teachers for me in how to weather seasons of life, because that was something I really struggled with. I still am, I'm a very sensitive person. But especially the oak and pine trees have like really grounded me, I think, and they really assist with that.
yeah, I'm lucky. We have lots of trees around us here. As for us basically getting the same message, I've been telling people for years because they see the devices I make and, oh, how do I do that? Well, you know what? The information is there. It's all around us. I'm not the only
Yeah.
one receiving it, and you're not the only one receiving it. And this goes back to what you spoke about earlier. Do your self work, get assistance, but empty your vessel so more can come in. Everything is a flow. It's not about
Yeah.
hanging on, right? So people need help with that because I'm telling you, it's all around us. you know?
Yeah, and honestly, like I think a lot of what people, at least in my experience with my practice, a lot of people who come to me just want to be heard and validated because they've gone through, and I went through this too, I'm sure you did as well. You go through a lot of your life before your awakening, just having everybody around you have no clue what you're talking about. And you're just like, well, I'm either crazy, or if I already know I'm not crazy because I see proof in my reality, then I'm just the only one experiencing this. And I think what's amazing about social media is people like you and me and all of the people watching can find each other finally. Like, I don't, I'm sure that you know better than me how hard that was before the internet. Like, you might have found books, but my God, I can't even imagine. Your generation are the MVPs of like moving this
Watch
energy.
out where you're going here. I remember when the first fax machine came out, when the first calculator came out, there was none of that, right? I remember
Yeah,
a slide rule and an abacus. So it wasn't easy, but what we went through in those times prepared us for these times. And before we go too far, I want you to tell us a little more about your services. How do people reach you? Get that information out. And I'll put the link in the post when it goes up, but share that with us, would you?
yeah. So all of my services are on my website, which is lyranwitch.com. And my website is set up so that you email me and let me know what you'd like, but everything is listed on there. So you can choose to book an energy reading for yourself as a person, or you can have one for you and your animals, where I work with your spirit guides and their spirit guides and help to bring through any messages about what they like to eat, what they need from you, body pain, and spiritual experiences that you might have had with them or they want to offer you. As in addition, you can book Reiki healing or spiritual clearing, like kind of a shamanic soul retrieval, is one other thing that I have on there, or energy paintings, which are they take a few months to do because each one is specific to the person, but just let me know what you'd like and we'll book a Zoom meeting and actually interact. So these are all through Zoom, or you can request, if you're on a different time zone than me, that I send a pre-recorded message, and then you can do follow-up questions from there. So that is how you reach me. I'm on most social media. So I have Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Those are my three big ones. And I have a few others as well, which are on my website.
Great. Can you speak to I guess, the demographics of who your clients generally are? Like, I'm 63 years old. Would I benefit type thing? Or is it more young people, or does it matter?
It really doesn't matter. I have people that are your age. I have people that are like 18. I've I've even had people show up with their kids, and them and their kids will get the readings. So yeah, anybody who feels called to interact with my energy, I always trust that if you feel called to me, there's a reason. Whoever you choose to work with, it's important that you feel safe with them. So whether it's me or somebody else, I just want them to feel safe with who they're entrusting their energy with. And spirit actually seems to reach out to people through dreams with me. I've had countless people say, "Oh, I had a dream about you, so I'm booking with you now." So yeah, anybody who feels like there's a message that they are in need of guidance with or clarity with, I'm really here to validate things that you already know, because I believe that everybody has a connection with source. I think everybody can learn to do the things you and I are doing, if not are already doing that in some way. I'm just here to assist with clearing any blockages if you need another person to assist you with that. Because everybody has seasons, I'm sure you do and I do, where it's important to get help from other people and feel comfortable to do that. So yeah, anybody that feels called to work with me can. There's not a demographic really. I have women, men, non-binary people, trans people, whoever. So yeah, whoever feels guided to it. There's usually some kind of synchronicity that brings people to me. So I always leave that up to spirit. I leave that up to my viewers and to spirit to decide if it's time to work with me or not.
Wonderful. We just rolled over the 30-minute mark. So I'll ask you anything else you want to add before I say my goodbyes. And I'm going to ask you right now, will you come back on the show
I'd be honored to. This is really
another
fun.
time?
Yeah, for sure. I feel very like grateful that you invited me. Um, it's funny because every time that I'm going through a moment of like doubt, you show up. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but you always seem to show up in some way in my life when spirit's like, hey, get back out there. Like really, really pay attention and start like speaking again. Um, I wanted to go back to something real quick that you mentioned earlier, which is you were talking about how I always try to keep it authentic. And I'm thankful that you said that because that's an energy that I've really always come back to is truth. And sometimes the truth isn't cute. Sometimes it's not fun. But I've realized that it's okay to not show up at your shiniest or your most happy. And I think that really is what brings people together because every time that you overcome and find the courage to like show up authentically, people really feel catharsis with that.
Okay,
So, yeah.
wonderful. And whenever I reach out to contact you, before I do, I always get a flash of your picture inside my head, and then I connect somehow. So we're going to
That's
conclude.
cool.
My guest today has been Rowan Banks, Lyranwitch, and I thank you so much for being a guest. So much information. You have to come back, so you will. And I want to get you on the open mic too, where we just throw it out on the table and we talk about a lot of cool stuff. So thank you again. You've been listening to the Time Is Now podcast. My name is Jody Albert Moss. This podcast will be available on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, and about 8 other platforms. So look for us, and thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Rowan.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for
bye-bye.
having me. See
Very
ya.
welcome. Thank you.